Hi, and welcome everyone to the next episode of AIXC Leader Talks. I'm Annesha, the editor of the AI Executive Council, and here we are with a very special episode for all of you to tune into today. If you are not already following AIXC Leader Talks, please hear from all our community members, the global business leaders who are part of AIXC, and the best place to do that is on Spotify and on YouTube. So go look for AIXC Leader Talks. With that, I'm going to talk about the very special 12th episode. Today, we have a very interesting and current topic that we're going to discuss. That's retail media analytics in the GenAI era, driving innovations and potential disruptions. And for this topic, for this conversation today, we have three very special guests with us. I will start off first with the introduction of our AI Executive Council member, Bruno Delahaye, who is the advisor of Cathay Innovation currently. Bruno has multiple years of experience in analytics, machine learning, and AI. He has worked in consulting, enterprise software, and cloud companies, and his experience ranges from startups to Fortune 10 companies. He possesses extensive experience in leading cross-functional and highly analytical commercial, product, and technical teams. Bruno has also led numerous multi-million-dollar software deals and has been instrumental in managing 2 successful exits. There is a hidden link between all the 3 speakers today, and you will get to know that, so just hang on. The second guest for today is Dmitry Pavlov, who is the head of retail media analytics practice at TheMathCompany. His experience is in leading R&D teams in all stages of product development and deployment. He specializes in retail media, big data, scalable machine learning, ad tech, martech, and personalization. So overall, the entire spectrum of retail. Previously, he has worked at prominent companies like Yahoo, Yandex, Criteo, and Walmart e-commerce, and led a major technology overhaul at Walmart Connect. And with that, we also have the third speaker. We have Prabal Majumdar, who is partner of customer success at TheMathCompany. Prabal is our third speaker today, and he has nearly 17 years of hands-on experience in predictive modeling. Prabal specializes in influencing data-driven decision-making for retail media, retail, and CPG industries. Experienced in strategic analytics, deep data science projects, analyzing complex business problems, and leading high-performing data science teams at top companies is just his day job. Welcome to each and every one of you to AIXC Leader Talks. Thank you so much for making time. So, Bruno, my first question is for you. You have spent many years in leadership at the retail giant Walmart, and since you have moved out very recently, I would like to know your perspective on the retail media landscape. And particularly, if you could also focus, on how the EU and the US, retail media landscape is similar or different. What is your overall perspective on that?
Yeah, of course, and thank you for having me. Of course, when you move out of like the retail giant like Walmart, it makes you ask lots of questions, right? And think back about what you've done and what you've achieved. What I found the most interesting actually is that when I was heading the analytic team at Walmart, essentially we always felt that we were probably delivering about 25%, maybe less, of what advertisers and providers were asking. When you actually move outside and start chatting with maybe the broader retail media community and other third party, you kind of realize how much of a trailblazer you've been, how much you've been leading the way actually. And I'm pretty sure for Prabal and for Dima, it feels exactly the same way. So really, stepping back and after a few months, you feel pretty proud actually of what has been done. Clearly Walmart is and has been proven to be a leader in this space and a leader in structuring and shaping the retail media world. On your second question regarding how different retail media may be in the US versus in Europe, essentially, I would say there are kind of two elements to it. One is certainly in the US, we are a little bit more advanced, right? The market is a little bit more mature. I would say still very nascent, but or it's in its infancy, I would say. But it's more advanced, I would say, than what we have in Europe. The other aspect of it is that the European market is obviously a lot more fragmented, right? And that leads to challenges. I actually was reviewing some past talk from Prabal and Dima about the importance of scale and the minimum scales that you actually need to reach to for retail media to be viable. And certainly in some European market, for some retailers, it's probably a lot more of a question in Europe than it is in the US.
Thank you for that, Bruno. And Dima and Prabal, pulling you into the conversation with, again, a little bit about your background, how you came into the retail space and your journey to MathCo. I also wanted to know that, it's just about 7 years back that retail media as a term was, it was non-existent. How is it that you've seen it grow? What are some major inflection points you've seen in your journey? So Dima, if you could go first, and then we'll go to Prabal.
Yeah, so I think in this case, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Amazon led the way, obviously. And so everybody looked at Amazon and they were like, wow, they're just making hand over fist money. Why won't we join the party? And I think retailers for as long as they can remember themselves, they were thinking about the business where they just buy in volume and sell retail. And then the data is somewhat, secondary to all of this. Now it turns out that the data actually has a lot of value. And I think this is the major realization where, again, kudos to Amazon. They showed the world that billions of dollars can be made. Now, the data is only good to a point where you're able to package it properly. And so what we're seeing today in the market is that there is a huge growth of clean rooms, and this is the emerging topic. There is data ventures like Walmart Luminate, where the data is actually taken together and packaged for the brands to use. For the brands on the other side, and they were buying Facebooks and Googles. Now retail media networks is offering a completely different type of pleasure, which is all of a sudden, it's all about targetability, measurability, optimizability, and reportability. And it's a very interesting question because I completely agree with Bruno that Walmart is ahead of the pack together with Amazon and together with companies like Instacart, and there is everybody else. There is a very interesting question, for example, and I don't know if we're going to get to this, but talk about the platforms that oftentimes retail media networks are leveraging in their pursuit of happiness with retail media dollars and the brands, and how this works as in my opinion, as a proof of concept. And this is, by the way, how it all started at Walmart as well, and how it may not work all that well when they think about the growth and custom features and actually attracting and affecting their customers in a positive way, and also keeping their internal teams, merchants and customer experience happy. Because let's be honest about this, nobody likes ads unless they are relevant, unless they're in the right time, in the right place, shown to the right customer. And so there is a lot of subtlety between GMV and ad revenue, and you really need to work that trade-off very carefully. And I think the best and brightest of this world, which are Amazon, Walmart, Instacart, they really understand it and they go for it. I think a lot of times what we're seeing today in the marketplace, that retailers who are leveraging third-party platforms find them extremely rigid, and they're unable to actually explore that trade-off very well. But my happy place is that Walmart is actually doing spectacularly. You can see that today they had another blast of a quarter, and the previous 4 or 5, at least as many as I can see on the screen for Google Finance, they're all green, 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 green. They're upping the guidance. Lots of great things are happening, and I think retail media there is just a monetization vehicle. And I think I was on record with this. I feel that in a lot of cases, retail business is not actually a business of buying in volume and selling retail. It's actually an advertising business. And so I think to Amazon, it is an advertising business. I think Walmart also, with billions of dollars of ad revenue, realizes that as well. But to actually be there in that business, you need to attract a happy customer, and you need to keep them happy, and you need to roll out features that make them come to you as a retailer and not to anybody else. And I think Walmart is doing spectacular job on both of these fronts. And this is my happy place.
Prabal, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. All right. Talking about Amazon, because we are dwelling on Amazon for some time, right? I mean, I was like, when this was all happening, right? I mean, in 2013, 14, I was working at Amazon, and there was a talk in Amazon, within Amazon walls, that they would say like, hey, I mean, advertising will ruin the customer experience. It is not good for us. This is not our core business. We should kill it, right? Lo and behold, $40 billion later, like they are saying like, hey, I mean, this is driving 70, 80% of our profits today, right? So, I mean, it is, if you think about Amazon, right, as a business, like the biggest, their cash cows or the source of profits is AWS and Amazon ads at this point, right? Fantastic, unbelievable, right? I mean, I think this is where like I would give kudos to the Amazon leadership for quoting George Bernard Shaw, right? I mean, he used to say like people see things that as they are and ask why, and I see things that are not there and ask why not. I mean, I think they definitely ask that question, why not, right? My experience like of monetizing insights at Walmart, like it happened absolutely by accident. Actually, the gentleman who hired me, there was a huge like hiring drive, and I was hired. And like when I said like, hey, I mean, what's the plan ahead? What do I do? He said like, you have to figure out. I don't know. I hired you because I liked you. I said, okay, sure. We actually like, and look at Bruno and Dima laughing at me now, but it's like literally like we stumbled upon this whole business of insights, right? I mean, there was no plan for it, but suddenly I started seeing that, oh my God, this first party data, it tells a story. And if that story is told to passed on to any CPG brand as a true partner, I mean, it is of immense value to them, right? I mean, there is no guesswork going on. It is completely deterministic. You know what's happening literally at the ground level, and you can take decisions of it that can save you millions of dollars or make you multiple millions of dollars. So the payoff is astronomical, right? So that's where like we start, absolutely, Dima and I, we always joke that we stumbled upon it, and now we encourage other retailers to stumble upon insights as a service or monetize insights with us in the same way. So, but yeah, fantastic. I mean, I think one thing, I mean, everyone like even like 4 or 5 years back, like people would say like, oh, retail media is a fad. I mean, we are past that phase. It's no more a fad. It is there. It is real. It's going to grow. Now we have to figure out like yes, it will grow in different branches. So we have to figure out what those heavy branches are, like where that will bear more fruit for the retailers and for the CPG brands, and how they will partner going forward.
Can I add maybe just real quick? I think the important point there is that retail media networks, and for the record, there is 600 plus and growing number of them right now. Their claim to fame, and I think it's the only one, is they need to keep their customers happy. And by customers in this case, I mean two. One is actual people who shop with that retailer, and the other is brands. And the indication that we have, because we're talking at TheMathCompany, both to the buy side, which is brands, and the sell side, which is retail media networks, is that on the brand side, and this was a gentleman from one of the top brands, the chief marketing officer. And so I asked him this innocent question. So does retail media work for you? And so there is a word that I won't be able to use on the recording. He says, well, it just doesn't work. And I'm trying to kind of uncover what is it that doesn't work. And his point is that we're getting all these different types of reports with different types of metrics, with different cadence. And now think about some of those retailers who actually signed up that rigid platforms that I was talking about, and that can actually not grow out of that platform simply because, you know, it won't allow them. And so I think the happiness that was promised to the brands, it is still elusive. It's there as a promise for the most part. It's not there big time. And so they still face a challenge. And the biggest one for them is, where do I invest my next dollar? How is it that my dollar that I invested previously was consequential in driving performance, and where do I take my next dollar? And so I think what is important with what Prabal was saying just a moment ago is that insights is that mechanism that allows you to understand who you need to target, when you need to target them, and then also take it all the way back, because out of insights, you can build the audiences and you can measure their performance and you can take it on a flywheel. And this is extremely, extremely important for the brands. So if you are a retailer or thinking about how to enhance your retail media network, this is one of the pieces that your brands are going to completely and totally appreciate and applaud you for, because you are enabling a capability that many others don't. And when we talk to retailers, a lot of them would say like, yeah, you know, we got, you know, this poor man's version of insights, you know, they're not really working, all that great. So this is the place where, from my perspective, and to just make Prabal's point in an emphasis, you need to invest if you want your brand happy.
Right. Thank you for that, Dmitry. And I'm going to just take that number you mentioned, that whopping 600 plus, RMNs or just retail media networks. And Bruno, my next question is based on this, that, with so many retail media networks and all of them running this ad tech business, do you feel they are hitting a glass ceiling in the next 5 years? Or what is your prediction? Will they grow at, say the high double digits for the next few years, or just hit a plateau?
Well, I think it's very difficult to talk about it globally, right? Dima mentioned about Walmart announcing their results today. I think they announced on the ad business about 35 or 36% growth year over year. Right? For companies like that, I don't think they are anywhere close to their ceiling. Right? For other companies, that may be a different story. So there are. I think we need to go back to kind of various elements. One is what we discussed about earlier about this notion of fragmented markets, right? Which means that there is actually a limit. There's probably a limit of in terms of growth that you can achieve based on the market size itself, right? Some people are bouncing around the number of about 10% of your GMV, being essentially kind of a good target amount for your ad revenue, right? I believe on my side that it's probably underestimated, right? But that kind of depends a little bit on two things. It depends on one side of how many large advertiser do you have? Because the large advertiser tend to spend a smaller portion of their GMV, right? Versus marketplace tend to spend a lot more. So that's kind of certainly a crucial element there. Where I see things going is that the market overall will keep growing. I think we are still at the start of the market. Now, when you look at specific retailer, right, then you have to ask yourself the question is, what is your limit based on the size of your providers, based on the number of brands that you carry, and based obviously on your traffic.
So, Dima, I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into ad spend, and I just want to pick up from what Bruno said and want to ask you something more pointed around the CTV ad spend. That's being added to the whole retail media arsenal, right? How do you think the connected TV ad spend can be used for more relevant and meaningful messaging?
So I think the simple answer there is it's all about performance. And so maybe just to talk a little bit about what Bruno mentioned just a moment ago, I think there are lots of gotchas for retail media networks that actually may just push them out of existence. And we're actually seeing some examples of it. One of them, for example, is just a failure to collect enough first-party data. It goes without saying that, you know, if you don't, you probably can run ads. So for example, you take search, Google run lots of ads without possibly knowing the person, just knowing the query, though probably not correct in a lot of cases. But in any event, the promise there is that just a query is enough to show an ad. I think in case we are talking about a site, you really need to have first-party data to facilitate any meaningful ad targeting, reporting optimization, and whatnot. And so I think this first-party data is actually key going forward, especially in the era of privacy, to not only knowing the customer and being relevant for them, but also in targeting external channels like CTV. And my favorite example that I actually got myself, and I was presenting it several times, so maybe just to reinforce it, I was shopping for dog food, and then I turn on my brand new Samsung TV, and at the very top, so even before I actually go into any apps, inside the homepage, I'm seeing an ad from the retailer who actually sold me the dog food. And so that ad was from the retailer themselves. It may have been as well from a brand that was selling dog food, or actually any other dog product. And so this is how I was thinking, wow, you know, it must have been that there is a connection. And indeed, I logged into the retailer with the same Gmail handle as I set up my Samsung TV. And so this is how they actually got connected. When we're talking about retargeting, and retargeting obviously in the past was a big topic. Criteo, my favorite company that I worked for 3 years, was a pioneer and did beautifully in retargeting. So now everybody's thinking retargeting is dead. It's dead in a way it was originally conceived, where it was based on third-party cookies and tracking through the cookies. But where I think it is not dead at all is when you have first-party data and you're able to connect it. And so I think there will be a lot more advertising that is going to be sold, be it on Facebook, which is a walled garden that actually has a lot of emails, or on CTV, where the connectivity is going to be established through, let's say, hashed emails and through first-party data, and that's going to work beautifully. And this is what we're seeing happening already. I think this is great, because this is an opportunity to really leverage first-party data to show relevant ads to customers. And by the way, maybe another thought just on that. I was talking to someone, and the interesting idea there is that all of a sudden, all the providers of, all the manufacturers of TVs, right, and hardware, they actually have a claim to fame, because this is Samsung actually showing an ad. And actually, another thing that is interesting is that once you go inside the app on that TV, you actually may be subscribing to an ad-free experience, let's say like on Hulu, and then you're actually non-penetrable as far as ads are concerned. And so I think it's almost the only time and place where you can catch that customer who is watching TV for the next 2 hours is on the home screen. And this is the appeal.
Right. So Dmitry, on that note of optimism, I am also going to talk a little bit about innovation and disruption. So just taking the conversation to what is the most trending topic probably of 2023, which is GenAI. So my question is to all three of you. Bruno, if you could go first. How do you feel GenAI is just going to innovate or disrupt the retail media space? And do you really think that retail media networks can have some risks that are coming up from GAI, and how they can mitigate these risks?
Yeah, great question. So obviously, just asking the question means that you are expecting that I will be extremely enthusiastic about GenAI. And obviously I am, but I want to start with probably the dark side of it. They are, according to me, or personally, I believe it's actually a GenAI is potentially an existential threat to retail media. What I mean here is that, as we discussed earlier, retail media depends a lot on traffic, right? So if you are Amazon, if you are Walmart, you depend on the traffic, mainly, let's say, on the traffic of Amazon.com. If you are Walmart, you rely on the traffic on Walmart, right? When you start essentially using GenAI and LLM model, right, there is a chance where you are actually re-intermediating the transaction. What that means is that we can completely scenarios where you will say, okay, I've got 6 people coming tonight at my place. They have this and this food allergies. I want to do, let's say, an Indian food theme or whatever, right? I've got, please tell me a recipe. And you have the recipes that come back, right? And say, okay, that's a recipe. And you can say, okay, I have all these ingredients, but 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever, right? Please order them for me, right? And you can see that the LLM can be connected to a system of action that would make the order automatically, right? And deliver that to my home by 6 p.m. or whatever, right? If you take this type of approach, then what happens is that you are actually removing the human traffic away from e-commerce website, right? This is a possible scenario. And if this type of scenario happens, that means that, you won't have any more opportunities to push ads in front of people, because all of that will be essentially captured by the LLM itself, right? So it is by itself an existential threat, right? So that's kind of the dark side. Or on the positive side, right, there are obviously amazing opportunities. And I'm sure Prabal and Dima will discuss about several. One that I want to highlight is that one of the difficulty when you do retail media is to be able to address this long tail, which means that you are able to easily address the first, 50 or 100, let's say, advertiser or providers, right, and provide them with systems and services. And themselves, they tend to be pretty large, so they have creative team, etc. So they are able to create the ads, right? When you talk about really the long tail, so let's say maybe the next 1,000 or 2,000, advertisers have also the capabilities. But when you go really to the long tail, to really like marketplaces and really smaller kind of shops or providers, right? They don't necessarily have a marketing team. They don't necessarily know how to run media effectively, right? They don't have these capabilities. That's when essentially GenAI can come in, because they can, you can automate the creation of the ad. You can, say, okay, I want to create an ad for this product. It will generate the image for you. It will generate the text. Then you can use more traditional, AI or machine learning to identify and create the audience for you, right? And identify what is the right time for it, right? So what that means is that the barrier, if you start packaging that, and there are companies that are starting to do that, by the way, right? Whether as a service or more as a product, right? But if you start doing that, what that means is that the barrier of entry, right, to run an ad is actually much lower than what it was before. And you can imagine sending automatically to people, ways to create their ads and for them just to validate it, right? That means that suddenly, you would be able to address this long tail and therefore generate even more retail media revenue. So that's one out of thousands, I would say, of possible example where GenAI could actually help.
I love that recipe, that metaphor there. That's making it super clear for how this disruption can work and, in our everyday life. So Prabal, we haven't heard from you in some time. Would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think every time, right? I mean, I reorder my groceries, right? I mean, like, and think of like your favorite like AI bot or whatever sitting at your home, right? I mean, if you say, Alexandra, reorder my grocery, 40, 50 pages worth of page views are gone, right? So I always think of that, right? I mean, okay, I mean, yes, it has come this far, but every time I'm reordering, that's the smallest thing, like where I see like the first disruption happening. But on me being like a slightly like optimistic person, like what if Alexandra was playing with my two competing brands of toothpaste, right? I mean, who are bidding on me, right? And changes my reordering pattern, right? Could be. So then again, we are talking retail media again, right? I mean, again, like my favorite retailer is making money off me just off my reorder. So there's that. Where I see, like as Bruno was mentioning, right? I mean, like let's say Black Friday shopping, right? Black Friday shopping, like I was reading somewhere, like leads to like in some cases like 6-7 hours worth of browsing, right? People are browsing and constantly comparing prices, looking at ads and whatnot, right? I mean, the moment I have a list and I say like go and like get the cheapest price or best deal out of it to a GenAI bot or something, same thing, right? I mean that's where like all the I think it opens up a door for a new kind of game. I think this is how I look at it, right? I mean the game will change. The game will change maybe from soccer to like racquetball or something, right? I mean you have to use rackets now, right, rather than just playing with your feet. So I think the game will change drastically with Gen AI, and I think it opens up the doors. But again, like it things will get disrupted. There is no like two ways about it. Things will get heavily disrupted, given me being a person like who with a conservative viewpoint of the world, right? I mean I generally like try to cut through the noise and try to find the signal. I do see a lot of like actual like very innovative things coming in the Gen AI space. One thing I'm very optimistic about, and I hope it gets solved, is ad fraud, right? I mean, I want my ads, let's say I'm a brand X and I'm selling whatever cell phones. I want my ads to be viewed by humans, not in a bot farm somewhere, I don't know, right? GenAI can solve that problem, right? I mean, with all the programmatic, once you get into that programmatic space and whatnot, like you lose control over who is actually viewing your ad. Is it a human being or is it a bot somewhere, right? So I think that being said, I do feel like there has to be a very thoughtful AI strategy going forward by all the retailers. It is opening up a very interesting area for us. Things will get disrupted. There is more things to worry about than in AI than like it solves for you, as a media would like you to believe. But there needs to be a very thoughtful strategy around AI, and you need practitioners who have actually done it and who understand this space and who can see around the corner for you. Nima, over to you.
There are lots of things that I want to say. I just probably won't be able to say them in 2 or 3 minutes. But maybe just a few like real highlights. One, and this is a public service announcement. If you are using LLMs, just be sure to know and maybe double check exactly what it returns for you, right? And the reason is very simple. We all now know kind of hallucination. There is actually a very solid machine learning reason why this hallucination is happening, is because this model has a gazillion of parameters. Nobody really knows how well those parameters are fit. And so nobody really knows where it hallucinates and where it doesn't. So to Bruno's example, if you really ordered food for your friends and they have, this interesting variety of food allergies, just be sure that there is not something there, because who knows, maybe this is like this hallucination actually brought something inedible to one or few of them. So this is one. Two, I think the whole idea that somebody is emotionally connected on the other side of the screen, and I think this is what people are finding fascinating about Gen AI, is absolutely awesome. So think about the bots that we used to use, like when we call 1-800 number or when we type something, they seem dumb to us in the past. Now, there is an example when I just talked to a colleague of mine the other day, and he was saying that, for some reason, unbeknown, now with GenAI, we're able to extract from the conversation, and his only point is we want names and emails. We're able to do it like 1,000 times more effectively now. Why? Because we put in an LLM, and LLM is actually appearing emotional and compassionate, and they're actually conversing. Our yield on this is so much higher. And he's basically saying, Dima, you won't believe it. So this is 2. 3, I really like the idea that somebody understands us at a level where we, for instance, shop at Walmart, and we shop and we shop and we shop. And all of a sudden, they actually do know what we shop for. Because guess what? At least in my case, I'm really conservative, kind of like Prabal. And I tend to buy same stuff. So when I buy bread, I really don't buy this bread and that bread and 10 different varieties. I buy this bread. So when I search for bread, even though for everybody else, the search result page may look exactly the same, I want my bread in position 1. And this is, by the way, what Walmart is doing. And this is one of the reasons out of many why I love them, is because this is personalization 101, and they caught up to this. But from there is only one step to actually knowing what to put in my basket. Put as in put period there, and I actually want it. And I almost don't need to authorize the charge, just deliver it to my fridge. I think this is the vision, ultimately and ideally. And yes, there is a threat, existential, potentially threat to retail media in this. I agree with Bruno completely. I also think what is going to happen in tandem with this is that they will figure out how to upsell and cross-sell and make an ad so that I will buy maybe a different brand of olive oil, and this is going to be, some other different notion of advertising. I think this is going to happen. And maybe the final thing on just in general, creatives and how important this is in terms of AI. I think Bruno touched on this beautifully. Take video ads as one example. I think the biggest challenge that they have in terms of attracting more customers onto the platform, onto the platforms that show video ads is creatives. So creatives are difficult, but it's even more difficult to show creative that is compelling to a person in the moment. And so I am talking about one-to-one personalization. And by the way, just recently, I listened to this podcast with Harvey Ma, who is a general manager at Albertson's Media Collective, talking about exactly the same. Can we be one-to-one personalized and relevant? And I think the answer is yes. And I think GenAI, from my perspective, definitely has a role to play there.
Right. So it's a very optimistic note on which we are looking forward. And in terms of even personalization as consumers ourselves, I think it's going to really change the way that we are consuming everyday things. And I really look forward to that. So to all our listeners, in case you still haven't figured out, the common link between all 3 speakers today is that they all are from, the team in Walmart. They work together for a lot of years. And for that very reason, just to bring the trio together, I would request Prabal to ask the very last question today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do the honors. So question to Bruno, right? I mean, do you feel that the winners in this space, in retail media, if you will be the ones with a very solid AI-based play and strategy right from the get-go, and like they will do some like groundbreaking stuff in the next couple of years? Do you expect to see, or are you hearing murmurs of that, given you have a now much broader purview of the world?
Let me first answer the question slightly differently, or partially answer the question and then answer it maybe a bit more directly, right? I think essentially the losers will be the one who are not trying in retail media, right? And why I'm saying that is pretty simple. Retail media is actually transforming and changing the bottom line and probably the revenue model of retailers. Right, we touched upon that on when talking about Amazon earlier. Right, what that means is that people that are able to figure out retail media really well or other ways to monetize data, right? You can think that some of them will actually shrink very significantly the margins they are making on the end consumer, right? To a point where like Amazon, right, where virtually all the revenue is not coming from the consumer, it's all coming from the providers. If you think about that, that's actually changing completely the business of retailers. So retail media is not about retail media itself; it's about transforming completely the retail businesses, right? And that can potentially make the moat for large retailers much stronger, much larger, right? So that's one thing which is very important. I would say, if you haven't started with retail media, right, you should really start ASAP, right? So the losers will be the one not trying for sure, right? In terms of, will AI be the big differentiator? I think the number one differentiator for me is really the capacity of capturing the right data, right? We talked a lot about first-party data, so it's crucial to capture this first-party data and finding ways to deserve this data from customers, right? Because to capture this data, you need to actually somehow deserve it, right? People need to feel that because they are providing you with this data, they are getting a better service and improved service, right? So that's really important. So I would say first, this is the data, and second is, people have to realize how early we are in this AI journey and GenAI journey. So I think essentially people that are the most innovative, the more nimble, right, and are ready to have like trial and errors, are ready to try new things, will be the real winners, which means it's not so much purely about the pure skill levels that you have, but it's about being pretty humble with the fact that we know very little about how far this market can go or how broad it can become, right? So you need to try new things. You need to see how you can integrate this offline business, right? And you need to keep listening to consumers, to the market, and keep innovating, right? And obviously AI will be central to it, right? But it will be central only if you are open-minded.
I want to add, if you don't mind, and again, I think this is such a great topic. Probably just we can spend another hour talking about this. But what I loved, Bruno, about what you said is that the first-party data is not only essential; it needs to be earned by a retailer. So in other words, somebody is coming to shop at you, retailer, because you are doing something special for them. And that's why they shop with you, they bring you the dollars, and they also bring you their data. And this echoes beautifully to what we heard in Harvey Ma's podcast, where he very similarly said that retail media revenue is earned. It's not deserved, right? Just not falling on you. It's not a tax. So here was actually discussing this question of a tax. It is actually earned. So data is earned, and then retail media revenue is earned. And this is now earned because your brands are willing to pay it because you are actually doing something fantastic for them. So the commonality there is that your customers who shop with you need to feel like they want to shop with you more because you're doing something fantastic for them. And then your brands will bring you retail media dollars because you're doing something fantastic for them. Now, what is the commonality that will enable both of this? You need to be relevant. You need to be showing the right ad to the right person at the right time. And I know we're all saying this, and guess how difficult this is, because it's all data-driven, it's all based on machine learning, it's all based on AI. And yes, if you're using that rigid platform, that does not cover this query and that query that covers like slightly irrelevantly, guess what? There is no happiness there because your customers are not going to click that ad, or even if they click, they won't buy. And then you will collect your revenue, but your ROAS is going to be down. And then the site team will tell you from just the customer experience perspective, why is that ad there? You need to do a better job on the relevance. And so yet again, the commonality there is relevance. And so I think what AI is doing, be it Gen AI or AI or machine learning, how we used to think about it traditionally, it's an enabler of that relevance. And if you look at the companies across the board, the top companies that have a lot of advertising revenue, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Walmart, they all invest real heavily into relevance, into making sure that both of their customers, brands and customers who shop with them, they're happy and they are walking that trade-off between organic search results, for example, or organic displays and advertising, so that that happiness is maintained while the revenue is generated. And it is entirely possible. It is just years upon years of work. There are papers upon papers that are written on the topic. Yet, I think what we will see, and I completely agree with Bruno and Prabal on this, we're just in the beginning of journey, specifically on retail media networks, that will need to invest significantly more into this relevance and AI and optimization and data. And only those who do invest heavily in this, they will stand to be beneficiaries. Because for all we know, the more relevance you provide on the modeling front, the more money, almost linearly, you're going to be able to make. And so less relevant, less data means less money, no money out of existence.
I mean, my biggest takeaway from this is what Bruno said, right? It's still ringing in my ear. Like the losers will be the ones who are not trying. If I may add to that, like the losers will be the ones that who are not trying and who are not imaginative. Like my son got a speaker like 2 days back. It's very loud. I'm planning to blast that from that speaker, like what Bruno said. I'm just gonna record that clip and just lack imagination and blast it everywhere if I could. But yeah, I mean that's a long and short of it. I mean, I cannot we come across a lot of like players like who are scared to take the next step or the first step for that matter, right? I mean, it's not gonna break the bank. You just need to have a plan. You just need to execute. It's not hundreds of millions of dollars or even millions of dollars to start, right? I mean, you can start small, you can make the small wins and, and go up the tree. So I think it's, yeah, that's the long and short of it. Yeah.
All right. So really fascinating and high energy into the conversation, I would say. And thank you so much, Bruno, Dmitry, Prabal, for making time for AIXC Leader Talks. And for all of those of you listening, hope that you get back to us with what you loved about the conversation. I'm sure there's lots and lots. I'm taking away a lot from this as well. And stay tuned and keep watching for next episodes. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much for having us.